Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06 on O'Connor and Company, a busy Wednesday morning. Thanks for letting us be a part of your morning routine, riding shotgun with you as you head to wherever you're going. Make sure you're informed, up to date, and entertained along the way. Coming up at 7:35 yesterday, it looks like the Senate is going to be following the House's lead in authorizing the D.C. government to, manage the RFK Stadium property and build a new stadium for your Washington Command Skins. So we'll talk to Meagan Flynn from the Washington Post about that. And then at 8:35, Jamie Brennan, Frederick County School Board. She won the election, but of course the Democrats want to recount so they can, find the votes. We'll get into all of that. Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Morning, Julie.
Good morning.
You remember we covered this story that it appears that, we know for sure because one female employee has already been fired, that houses down in the hurricane recovery zone a couple of months ago that displayed Trump signs, Trump flags, or any outward expression of support for President Trump were bypassed by FEMA employees. Yesterday, the director of FEMA, Dina Criswell, was grilled under oath by Congressman Scott Perry of Pennsylvania.
Now, according to your employee, Ms. Washington, who was asked, and this is a public report, these orders came, she stated, so you're telling me these orders came from somebody above? And she said, correct. So what has your investigation gleaned regarding her direct supervisors, the people above her? Have you questioned them, and what have your answers been?
Chairman Perry, we do have an ongoing investigation, and we have questioned other personnel in this chain of command, and we find no information at this point that there was anything beyond her direction to her employees to skip and bypass a home.
All right. So that was not only Congressman Perry from Pennsylvania, but he's also the chairman of the committee that oversees FEMA. Thank you very much. And he joins us now. Congressman, Mr. Chairman, thanks for joining us, sir.
Well, Larry and Julie, it's great to be with you. And, we're used to the shell game from these witnesses. She would say things like, I haven't seen any evidence. But
yes.
That doesn't mean, often, look, I've been in places where, I hate to say it, but government agencies say, I haven't seen it. And you can say, well, I can hand it to you right here. And they say, no, you keep that. They don't want to see it.
Right.
In the very next hearing, we had that in transportation, which is actually we oversee FEMA. But in the Oversight Committee shortly thereafter, during that hearing, there were whistleblowers that came out and said this occurred in other places. And, of course, Ms. Washington didn't work in these other places. So, it stands to reason. Look, I also asked the question, where was Ms. Washington in the chain of command? And the director or the administrator said she was at the lowest level. So you're telling me the person at the lowest level is making these executive decisions for everybody on the ground. Nobody believes it, and Ms. Washington and others have stated that there was a systemic culture of this, and we certainly can believe it under this administration, who has weaponized nearly every single agency and every single function of government against their political rivals. Well, and it stands to reason. So I think it's just a matter of time until this is borne out.
And Congressman Perry, you just heard that exchange where she said, we have no evidence, or I haven't seen any evidence. And your question was specific about Ms. Washington's direct supervisor. A little later, your colleague, Congresswoman McClain from Michigan, said, who is her direct supervisor? And Ms. Criswell said she had no idea. In fact, she didn't seem to have any working understanding of the hierarchy of the very agency that she administers. So what are we to make of this if she's there under oath saying this isn't widespread, but then can't even tell us what the chain of command is that leads down to Ms. Washington?
What we're to make of this is that it's likely a culture. It's likely widespread. Your worst fears are confirmed. They were using the awesome power of the federal government to pick and choose who was going to get help and assistance and who wasn't based on their political leanings. And what I think we're seeing is, look, they're just going to play out the clock and hope this goes away. Yes. As this administration leaves town, and they think that we're going to move on to other things. And we are going to move on to other things, but we're not going to forget our duty here. And, and we're going to continue the investigation. She told me she was working with the IG, the Inspector General, and I said, don't you have a vested interest in the outcome of this, and wouldn't you want to have FEMA's name cleared if what you say is correct? And I said, instead of working with the Inspector General, why don't you just request the Inspector General do the investigation, and then we can have an impartial view of what the truth is here.
Yeah.
Chairman Perry, I worked in disaster relief. I actually was with the Red Cross during Hurricane Katrina and worked directly with FEMA. And after 9/11, FEMA was transferred into Homeland Security. And frankly, it's been kind of a disaster. This isn't the first time. This isn't the first incident. Under Mayorkas, FEMA seems to have done even worse. Is there any talk on Capitol Hill, and particularly in your committee, about taking FEMA outside of DHS, making it a standalone agency that's accountable directly to the president instead of being in this sort of command structure where it's in an agency that's already bloated and already Secret Service is also in DHS. There's just some questions about DHS itself and why FEMA is embedded inside of it. Is there a talk of lifting it out and making it a separate agency?
Well, I don't, Julie, I got to tell you, I'm not sure. First of all, thanks for the work you did with the Red Cross. It's awesome. But the conversation isn't necessarily about moving the deck chairs around on the Titanic. It's more of a conversation of why don't we just abolish FEMA and allow the states to run their disaster relief. And if we have to, we can provide them with some funds and some general guidelines. During the same hearing, I mentioned the Cajun Navy, and I think maybe even some of those members were in the room. And it seems to me the Cajun Navy anticipated the disaster, had people and equipment on the ground, was able to rescue people, provide relief, provide supplies. This is a nonprofit organization of volunteers. Why don't we just let them do it, since maybe they should run FEMA? How about that?
I love it.
Well, maybe they should, and I guess that's what most people looking at this would that's the conclusion that they would reach. But I think that there's also a larger issue here when you say that it's a misuse of government power for FEMA to be able to, as you put it, pick and choose who gets aid. By picking and choosing who does get aid, that means by definition they're choosing who doesn't, which means they're punishing people. Yep. They inflicted harm against people because of their political leanings, it appears, and the fig leaf of excuse they're using is, we were met with hostility. Well, I'm sure they were met with hostility. These were people who were on the verge of losing their homes and possibly the lives of their children or their pets. So, is that a fair enough excuse to say, well, people were hostile and the connection we made was that the people who were hostile had Trump flags, therefore we're going to punish anyone with a Trump flag?
I don't. There's no excuse that people were hostile because they have a Trump sign in their yard, or they should be punished because they like Donald Trump more than they like Joe Biden. And you can't. One house might be. Look, I can tell you, I've gone door to door running for re-election. And, you go up to a door that has a Biden-Harris sign as a Republican, and I can just assure you, of the welcome you're likely to receive. But that doesn't mean you don't go and try and make your case. Yeah. And their job is to provide relief. And these people have had their lives turned upside down. Are they going to be a little edgy? Most likely, but they're probably all going to want to help. And it's your job to go make sure that they are aware of what can be provided.
One other question, Congressman, and again, I didn't watch the entire hearing, but you're paid to. So if you could tell me, these allegations of hostility that met these FEMA employees as they were going door to door, hostility from Trump supporters with outward signs of support for Donald Trump in their homes. Is there any actual documented incident that they can? I would think if a FEMA employee on the ground doing their job is met with some kind of hostile response, that they, send a memo, fill out a form, an incident report. Is there any paper trail supporting that allegation?
There's not one shred of evidence of that other than their claims that I have seen.
Wow.
And I would think that since they seem to document everything more than they're interested in actually providing the occasions, you would think if that were the case that there would be reams and reams of documents to corroborate that.
So, Scott Perry, there was, as you just mentioned, there was discussion of the Inspector General, an IG investigation. How about an AG investigation? Does this rise to the level of lawlessness, of criminal behavior?
Well, I think it could. Unfortunately, that investigation will have to wait until Matt Gaetz is the Attorney General, because I suspect Merrick Garland somehow won't be very interested.
How dare you, sir? That's Merrick. He should have been Supreme Court Justice, Merrick Garland. Congressman, thank you so much for this. Please stay on top of it.
Yeah.
They, like you said, they're trying to play out the clock. They want this to go away. But I think this election that we just experienced 2 weeks ago suggests that the American people, this is exactly the reason why the election went the way it went. And we're looking forward to you following up.
We will follow up, and we will run it to ground. Thank you very much. God bless you.
That's Scott Perry, Pennsylvania, chairman of the House Economic Development, Public Buildings, and Emergency Management Subcommittee of the Oversight Committee. Boom.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
7:38 now. Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Coming up at 8:35, Jamie Brennan, who appears to have won a school board seat in Frederick County, but now there's going to be a recount. She'll give us an update. But right now we're joined by Meagan Flynn. She's a reporter for D.C. Government and Politics of the Washington Post, and there was a big vote yesterday in a Senate committee. This has to do with the future of the site where the RFK Stadium is and potentially a new site for the Washington Command Skins. That's what we're calling it here, Megan, because we still haven't adopted the Commanders. Thanks for joining us. Well, what happened in this committee vote, and what does it mean in terms of a future site here for a football stadium?
Yeah, so the RFK bill, which would give D.C. control of the land, which is right now it's federal Park Service land at RFK. It'd give D.C. control for 99 years and allow the city to redevelop it, including into a stadium. And so yesterday, the bill advanced through a Senate committee by a vote of 17-2, and I think that's actually what's really notable about it.
That might be a record for this Senate, actually.
It's got bipartisan support in this committee, which I think is a really good sign for D.C. about its chances. And really, the Senate committee vote, the bill is not likely to get a vote on the Senate floor, though that's not impossible. It's just, the Senate usually doesn't see D.C. as when they're at the end of the year trying to do a bunch of bills and judges, its likelier pass could be in a larger Senate spending package before the end of the year. And so to see such bipartisan support for the bill on the committee might just give it some more momentum to get that done before the end of the year.
Yeah, I found one interesting sort of side note here is the opposition by Senator Steve Daines. Tell us about that. I thought it was kind of interesting why he originally opposed the bill. He's come around, but tell us about his opposition.
Yeah, so Steve Daines, senator from Montana, he had long opposed the bill because he wanted the Native American family that was credited with designing the team's old logo to be honored or compensated, or he really was just advocating for them. It was why he said he opposed the legislation. He also has not been, I think, okay with the transition to the new name on behalf of his constituents.
Well, and most specifically, this is Walter Blackie Weitzel, who is a member of the Blackfeet Nation in Montana, and they designed the iconic Native American face, the profile that became the Redskins logo forever. Is it true that Senator Daines received a promise from the team that they would restore the logo?
No, that's not quite it.
Okay.
The team and the senator and the family have been in talks for a while now, and in September, the Commanders representatives and NFL representatives went and visited the family in Montana, just to meet them, sit down. They also then hosted the family in Maryland to unveil a memorial to Weitzel. And so they kind of were trying to make amends that way.
Right.
And through all these conversations, they discussed a foundation or a possible foundation to support, Native American causes.
Okay.
And on old, promotional gear or items.
Well, if you go, yeah, please twist the arm of an NFL team to sell throwback memorabilia so they could make money. If you go to Northwest now to see a football game, you'll see that, where they have the shrine to the Super Bowl trophies and stuff, there is a whole exhibit about this logo. And I don't know, Meagan, I think that they might, a lot of people, they recognize that the name of the team is going to be Commanders, but they don't really like the logo. I wonder if that's the compromise. Keep the name Commanders, but bring back that iconic logo.
I mean, yeah, that is certainly going to need more than a Senate bill for that, or a congressional bill. I think that's outside the scope of Congress. So who knows what's remained to be.
Well, like I said, if the team recognizes, they'll spell. Everyone who has a shirt now will buy a new shirt with the new logo. It might work out. So what's the next? You said this will probably get wrapped up into a spending bill at the end of this term, and then as soon as that's done, basically. We move forward. Does the D.C. government will be able to actually talk in real terms with the ownership, and we could have groundbreaking soon, right? I mean, this means Virginia and Maryland are pretty much out of it.
I think the definition of soon here is the big wild card. So essentially, I mean, it's still. I would say it's still pretty uncertain what happens with the RFK bill in the next couple months. The hope is absolutely that it gets through, attached to a larger bill. And so that, supporters of the legislation are lobbying really hard for that right now. Should that happen, as everyone hopes, yes, that would really officially bring the commanders and the mayor to the table. For a discussion about the site. It's still up to the commanders. I mean, the mayor has been very clear that she wants D.C. to host them here at the stadium. They're still, I think they've called, RFK their, quote, spiritual home, so have made very clear indications that they really would like that idea. But ultimately, Maryland is still lobbying very hard for them as well, and in fact, really tried to mount a more public attack against the legislation.
Yes, Senators Cardin and Van Hollen are squarely against this idea for their own purposes, though, of course. So, and no comment from RFK Jr. on this that we know of.
No, not quite. Although that is interesting. He will be in the Trump administration should the bill need Trump's signature.
I know. It's like all this, we got to talk about the future of RFK, and then we got to bend over backwards to explain exactly which RFK we're talking about, but that's okay. We can walk and chew gum. Also, Meagan Flynn, Washington Post. Real fast, what do you think? Command skins. It works, right? I mean, come on. You could take this ball
Meagan.
And run with it. You could make this
you don't
part
have
of
to
the.
run with it.
You could make it part of the style book at the Post. Come on, Meagan.
I'm going to stick to my City Hall coverage, and I'll let you guys. I'll let you guys.
That's true. I guess you have your hands.
Out.
You have your hands full with Crayon White, if that's what you're covering. So we'll just leave it at that. Thank you, Ms. Flynn. Great talking with you.
All right.
It's 7:45. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives with Jamie. Julie Gunlock, as you know, not only am I America's favorite morning host, and not only am I the ambassador to the Virginia wine country, but I'm basically a aficionado of all things culinary as well as
just handsome,
enophiliac.
Funny.
Enophiliac? Can I make that? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's right.
Food and wine. Food and wine is my wheelhouse.
Onophile.
Enophile. Enophile? Yeah.
Onophile, I think. Onophile.
Anyways, I saw this story going viral yesterday, and it was really controversial, and I didn't quite understand why it would be controversial. It's a no-brainer. Wine and pizza. Pizza Hut introducing wine with pizza. And I'm like, well, of course, wine is perfect with pizza. A nice Chianti if you want to go old world. Or, of course, by the way, as you know, Virginia is known for its Cabernet Franc. We've got great Cabernet. Cabernet Franc is a great pairing with pizza.
Yes.
The dryness of that fruit pairs off beautifully with the acidity and the tomato sauce that you're going to have. And I'm starting to craft a response on X as people are freaking out about wine and pizza from Pizza Hut. And then I realized, wait a second. This isn't about pairing a very good wine with pizza. This is about pizza wine. This is a tomato-based wine that has the flavorings of pizza built into the, and I'm sorry, I can't even say it without my gag reflex taking off.
This seems
is
rough.
the most disgusting thing I've ever heard of. What in the hell are they thinking?
I totally agree, and I really think we should try it.
A tomato wine with basil-infused flavoring. I do love the fact that Pizza Hut, by the way, this is crafted in the Kansas-based Just Beyond Paradise Winery. And no offense to our friends in Kansas, but as the Virginia wine ambassador, I have to say, get off my lawn. You don't have any business making wine in Kansas.
But if you're going to make wine in Kansas, it sort of suits, right? That it's a tomato basil.
If you're going to make wine in Kansas, or for that matter, anywhere on the planet, use grapes. Don't use tomatoes. This is disgusting.
This could be a whole new thing, Larry. You never know.
My favorite part of this is that Pizza Hut is assuring everyone it's a limited edition. Yeah, it's limited because no one's going to buy it.
I'd try it. We should do a tasting.
Oh, sure. That sounds like a great way to start your day.
Yeah.
Bottles priced at $25.
$25?
2-bottle minimum. I love that.
I love that.
So, yeah, take your $50 and buy 2 bottles of pizza wine.
Okay, you wouldn't try this just for the novelty of it.
If someone else is buying. This is disgusting. It's absolutely horrible.
Oh, look at how upset you are. My goodness.
But that said, since my expertise transcends just wine, let me say, if you really are in the market for a big chain pizza, can I just say Pizza Hut is probably the lowest on the rung of chain pizzas that you want?
It's funny. I feel like Pizza Hut is trying to make a comeback.
Well, the only way they can do it is if they bring back the old designs of the
you don't have to be such a
restaurant.
snob. Okay, you don't have to be such a
I'm
snob.
not a snob.
First
I like Domino's.
First of all, you're
no.
a Gen Xer. Okay, honestly, you're a Gen Xer. You should, seriously, you should be kind to pizza. That's what we grew up with. Okay, now I know that we have like all these fancy pizza places and they have this fancy pizza ovens.
I'm not saying.
But this was it. This was it.
No, it
if you
wasn't
wanted pizza in the 70s and 80s, this was it.
Excuse me, I was there. You had your choice of
you
Pizza
lived in California.
Hut. In California we had Shakey's, which was awful. No, we had Pizza Hut, or we had the 2 chains from my hometown, Detroit. You had Domino's or Little Caesars, and let me tell you,
thick crust, thick
if
pizza.
you're going for a chain style pizza, you do Domino's, you do Little Caesars, and you just walk away happy.
No.
Right?
I grew up around a lot of Pizza Huts, and I just think that we owe them a little respect. Also, they have a salad bar. Okay? They had a salad bar. Pizza Hut was famous.
If they go back to the pizza parlor, that's fine. I'll entertain that. But I'll bring my own wine. Thank you very much. It's 7:54.